College Basketball Weekly, brought to you by the Full Court Network. Luke Taylor here, my guy Sammy D. It's excited to be back talking about college basketball. This is my favorite time of the year. Before I tell you why it's my favorite time of the year, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review. All the links are below. Subscribe to the Full Court Network at the Full Court Press, a college basketball coaches show, and this wonderful show. 5-star reviews where you can on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Like and comment. And big thing, pass the rock, as Sammy D likes to say, and share it with your friends. But you know why I love this time of the year? Because it's conference time. And this is where the big bros put their pants on.
Time.
Yes. And it's a bloodbath.
Yes.
Love it.
Yes. It is a bloodbath, and it's where rivalries are born. It's where, superstars kind of come to the shining light, and on the other end of the spectrum, it's where Cinderella stories kind of start as well. You start to see some of these teams get into conference and win 5-6 games in a row, and you're like, oh wow, didn't see that one coming. Right. So, but it's definitely pretty wild with like recent conference alignment. It's I feel like I have to adjust my brain watching some of these conference games, seeing some of these teams play against each other.
Oh, especially how do you think I feel in the Big Ten? I mean, I'm in Big Ten country. I'm watching Michigan thump UCLA and USC and beating Illinois, and Washington and Oregon. It's just so weird to me. And you got to think it's going to affect their conference record just because of the travel.
Well, I think it is I think it is affecting it, and I know we're going to talk a little bit about UCLA and some of the recent games there and Coach Cronin and stuff. But it's, that team's flying from Los Angeles to the East Coast. I mean, that's a 6-hour flight. It's
Rutgers. Yeah, they're going to Rutgers.
Yeah, I mean, my guess is, they flew out to play Maryland and just stayed out there over the weekend. I would hope so, at least. But I mean, even that, it's I don't care if you're a 18 to 23-year-old athletic superstar or a 50-year-old CEO of a company. I mean, it takes a while to get your body adjusted to different time zones, and I think it's this conference alignment, having these teams go coast to coast. I think it's definitely affecting the players this year, and I think it's going to be something to look at in the years to come.
Yeah, I would agree. But it's the thing that's very interesting to me and us is we started Full Court Press. It was something else, and we had to change it. And it's probably the only really true college basketball coaches show. We have a different coach almost every week, even some twice a week, 3 times a week, depending on how many and stuff like that. And I think the thing that I've learned from this show is just how much college coaching has changed in the last year or two. You look at Mick Cronin's outbursts and the future of college basketball coaching. I mean, what is the future of college basketball coaching? We've had Tony Bennett retire just before the season starts. Jim Larinaga stopped in the middle. Bobby Marlin from University of Louisiana Lafayette, we've had on the show. He's no longer there. I believe another coach, I think it's Louisiana Monroe's head coach, is retiring at the end of the year. What is going on the sidelines?
Sidelines, locker rooms, practices. I just think it's a different atmosphere right now. I think, the 2 things that we talk a lot about on our weekly coaches show is NIL and transfer portal. We don't dive too deep into it, but we want to get everybody's kind of opinion on it. And the consensus is, most of the coaches are really happy for the players to get paid.
Absolutely.
They talk a lot about creating players. They also, the consensus is that the coaches believe that the players, that the transfer portal should be open. If there's better opportunities, these kids should have the option to do it. Or is it the right option? Is the grass always greener on the other side? That's really where the decisions start to kind of muddy the waters. I just think it's really hard. I mean, the best coaches over the past several decades have been able to grow relationships with players. And through relationships then creates a culture. And that's near impossible to do right now. Unless you have 1-year culture strategies, which I think some coaches actually do, and they're doing really well with it. But you have a guy like Mick Cronin, who had a lot of success at Murray State, ton of success at Cincinnati, massive success the first couple of years at UCLA. He's making $4 million a year. This is not the same college basketball atmosphere as it was 5 years ago,
Right.
as it was 10 years ago when he was having. It's not the same
Shoot, let,
conversation.
let alone 2, 3 years ago.
Yeah, it's not the same conversations with players and players' families anymore either. It's and I think what's happening there's definitely a generational divide. And I'm hesitant to use the word like entitlement, but I'm gonna throw it out there. And I mean, what are these? I think you have certain players with a personality that is contagious out there with certain programs. And, I look at a UCLA team that's lost all 4 games in January. Losses to Nebraska, losses to a good Michigan team, losses to Maryland, and now Rutgers. And what I looked at is what happened at halftime, and does Cronin have these guys listening to him?
No,
And the second half point differential in all 4 of those games is 41 points they're losing.
no. I
There's
mean, you saw the
like
press conference, right? I mean, how
yeah,
can
I mean,
you?
he's losing his players. Like, they're just like there's that sense of entitlement, and, I think that a lot of players are soft, and it's gonna be and he said it, you know?
Well, I mean, I thought the interesting thing is, and anything can be taken differently on social media. Rick Barnes was asked, why did Charles Lanier get benched or sit or whatever, and he said,
Mhm.
he designed a play, didn't take the shot. So what's wrong with that? People are saying he embarrassed him. He didn't embarrass him. He was asked a question and he respectfully answered it. And I think, that comes. I've heard, mid-major program that's having an okay year. They're predicted kind of higher up in their conference and has played in the NCAA tournament before. They have a player making $100,000, or so, and he's a cancer in the locker room.
Yeah.
And like, what do you do? Like, what do you
Like I
do?
said, yeah, I think it's contagious, and I think that's gonna be that locker room culture has always been a variable that coaches take into consideration when recruiting players, right?
Right.
Um, and again, I anybody is gonna change when you go from making $0 to a couple $100,000. I don't care if you're a
Even
college basketball player or a father of 3 kids,
Yeah, but even if you go from 0 to 100,000, I
That's
mean,
what I'm
that's
saying, and it's
yeah,
like so it's like the a lot of the time, what I'm seeing is the players that these coaches are recruiting aren't the same players after a couple months, right?
yeah.
And, I don't know how that's gonna get fixed. I think it's gonna be I think that there's gonna require a different style of coaching. Um, I think a lot of
Well, you
more
kinda see it, not to cut you off, look at Bill Belichick.
for
I
sure.
mean, I would never thought I would see Bill Belichick take a head coaching job, let alone University of North Carolina, and no offense to the Tar Heels football program, like, he would take that job. It's
But it's
crazy to me.
right up his alley now that players are getting coaches. On the flip side of that, there was an interview with Coach K, legendary Duke coach from this past
Mm,
week, who said if NIL was around when he was coaching, he would have taken one of the many offers he was given to move up to the NBA. He
yeah.
said, if I'm gonna coach players who are getting paid, I'm gonna do it at the highest level. And like it's so you look at a lot of the younger coaches this year are succeeding, right?
Yeah.
Because I think that it's easier for them to have these conversations with the players, right? And the next 6, 7 games at UCLA, they're all on the West Coast. So I don't think that there's going to be any excuses with East Coast referee bias or travel schedules or anything like that. They don't leave the West Coast until February 11th, right? So I
Well,
mean,
they might be playing with all the fires in LA, they might be playing somewhere else, though.
true, but I mean they will be doing it on the
Same
West
time
Coast.
zone. Yep,
Yeah,
same
it's the
time
same
zone, yep.
time zone, so they've got 7 games that will allow them to regroup as a program without any excuses, and, I mean, I think these next 7 games are vital for a program like UCLA,
Yeah,
and, but you like I already said, I mean, you're seeing coaches lose their team too early in the season, right?
yeah.
And it's because, it's the chemistry in the locker room just isn't there. Um So it's, but to your point, I mean, the coaching style, the future of coaching, it's going to evolve the next couple of years. I mean, there's
Yeah.
so many different strategies out there, and coaching blueprints, and we've talked to a lot of coaches about it. Um, I mean, I loved our interview with Sundance Wicks, the coach at Wyoming, who kind of talked about kind of mid-major money ball. I mean, it's a
Mhm.
real thing now, right? I mean, we talked to Coach Beard, who's doing an incredible job this year. I think he's one of the top 10 coaches in the country. And
Absolutely.
he's able to utilize the transfer portal, utilize NIL, and he's set a standard that was apparent from day one in that
Yeah.
program each
Yeah.
season.
Well, I
So,
think yeah, and you know what I took away from all these coaches, like there's no off season anymore.
mm-mm.
It's so difficult to schedule, especially at the high major, mid major level. And then the transfer portal and NIL, you're not only recruiting new players, but you're recruiting your current players.
Yep.
And then you got like Coach Spiker from Drexel said, he's like, I'm going to be doing bake sales to try to raise money from NIL. And some programs have it and some don't. And I think it's interesting. Like we looked at Tom Izzo, for instance. I mean, he really struggled last year. Michigan State struggled. They had a down year, but this year, I don't know what changed. But I mean, Michigan State's a top 15, top 20 team.
Yeah, they're playing really well.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And then I mean, you look at the other end of the NIL and transfer report. I mean, there was someone on Twitter talking about like some of the players that should have gone somewhere else, should have stayed. AJ Storr, John L. Davis, Jonas Adu. But it's like, do you fault him? I mean, it's hard. But then you look at the other guys, like you look at Elijah Martin at Florida, the guy who I love that's really done well with the transfer portal and probably NIL too is Ian Martinez at Utah State.
Yep.
I mean, he's playing more minutes. He's gaining opportunity. He's scoring. I mean, you saw that 4-point play to win it. I mean, it's just crazy to me. So I don't know. Do you
Yeah.
think there's going to be any changes by the end of the year? Or are you going to see more coaches go?
No, I think you're going to see more coaches shuffling because they're going to get a lot of pressure from boosters and alumni and the powers that be, that they're going to say, like, we just gave you $2 million in NIL money. Like, why aren't you winning?
Yeah,
Right. I mean, I've got a game circled for this weekend, Indiana versus Ohio State. I think we're going to kind of see how good these two programs are. I think Ohio State kind of has a year or two to kind of build it, but Indiana, man, it's I mean, I think they've lost three games this year,
yeah,
and but kind of moving into conference play, we're going to find out really quick how good that team is that
right.
Indiana has built through NIL.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I think that to go just touch on the coaching, that's why you're seeing a lot of mid-major, mid-major coaches. We heard it from Coach Morrell, a couple others. They're staying put. They're really being selective on, what job they take and what have you, because they still want to have have kids, young families, and there's got to be some sort of balance. But it's going to change. It'll be curious to see what happens next when it comes to college basketball coaches. And some teams, like you look at Marquette with Shaka Smart. I don't think they have one transfer on this team, and they're a top 10, 15 team every year. So obviously he's developed a culture and, and you look at UConn too, they've got quite a few guys returning each year and what have you. So,
Yeah. I mean, I think Shaka Smart has, and I'll kind of finish it here, but like Shaka Smart really hit the nail on the head when he said, I'm not gonna re-recruit my players. I'm gonna let my players re-recruit their teammates. If the players like playing with each other, they're gonna stick around.
yeah,
And that's part of that culture. You have to find guys who like playing with each other.
yeah. You know who's got a great culture? Then we'll go to the next. I'm going to ask you the next question. Is Johnny Tower at St. Thomas? I think it's
With
like
Tommy's
20.
man.
Yeah, 23 out of the last 23 out of 26 players have come back over the last
They
couple of years.
they're building something so cool. Like I can't
No,
wait
they
to
actually are. They're building a new arena.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sorry, I know. I mean, they are I can't wait to look back at that interview you did with Coach in, like, 2 or 3 years when the
Yeah.
Tommies are kind of getting bids for, like, top 25. I think that they're in the right direction for that. I know it's kind of a hot take, but it's, like, the exponential skyrocket of how well that team is improving year after year, month after month, the past 2 years is just incredible.
The coolest story in college basketball, St. Thomas Tommies.
Yes.
Hey, so I want to ask you, Has Cooper Flagg officially passed Janai Broom as the Player of the Year frontrunner?
Good question. Yes, I 100% think so. I think the past couple weeks, I mean, Cooper Flagg's just stepped to a whole nother level. Um, you're talking about a freshman who's averaging 19 points per game, 18 rebounds a game, 4 assists per game, shooting, 48, 49% from the field. His confidence is out of this world for a freshman. You see the
Yeah.
entire like Duke is just running through Cooper Flagg. I actually think that if Cooper Flagg was in the NBA this year, like he would be contending for rookie of the year. I think he's that
Yeah.
good. Here's the thing. He just turned 18. He played the first 11 games of the season as a 17-year-old. Put
That's
up 40
ridiculous.
Yeah, just put up 42 points against Notre Dame, with 6 rebounds, 7 assists, the most points by, a Duke freshman. I don't think it's even close that he is the best player in college basketball. I think that, when it's going to come down to the voters, they're going to look at several things. I mean, I think Janai Broom I think he was the front runner up
Well,
until,
absolutely. 17.9, 10.7 rebounds per game, 3.3
yeah,
assists,
yeah.
2.7 blocks. Come on
Yeah,
now.
I mean, yeah, up until about New Year's, and then, and just they're one of the things that the voters are going to look at is their head to head. I mean, they did play against each other, and Cooper Flagg got the best of them. December 4th, as a 17-year-old against a 22-year-old Broom, Cooper Flagg put up 22 points, 11 rebounds, 2 blocks, and 3 steals. It's Auburn's only loss of the season at this
Yep.
point. I do think Auburn's going to lose a couple more just because of how good the SEC is. I don't think Duke is going to lose in the ACC. They're going to look at that as well. Duke is going to be the number 1 team in the country, I think, before the end of January. And Cooper Flagg's going to be the best player on the best team at that
Okay.
point.
Well, let me ask you this.
Mhm.
Who's better in their freshman year at Duke, Cooper Flagg or Zion Williamson?
I think Cooper Flagg is. I mean, I think Zion Williamson needed that year at Duke. I also think, like, I remember watching those Duke games with Zion, and like, you're just like your jaw is dropped, right? Just with how athletic he was. Um, I I think that, but I remember watching some of those games, and I'm like, oh, Zion's kind of holding back, right? Like he doesn't want to get injured. He did get injured in one of those games, I remember.
Yeah.
But I was like, he's not going full speed. And that's kind of how I felt Cooper Flagg was the first, 10, 12 games of the season. And now it's like he's just turned it up a
Yeah.
notch the past 2 or 3 weeks. And you're seeing how good this kid is. And, over the summer he played against, the best players in the NBA and, held his own for, 10, 15 minutes.
Yep.
And I'm like watching him the last couple games. I'm like, he belongs in the NBA this year.
Yeah. Yeah. You know what a cool stat was Zion Williamson is he was 68% from the free field goal percentage,
Yeah.
68% field goal percentage. Led the ACC second in the nation and highest field goal percentage ever by a freshman.
Yeah. I
A
mean,
lot of dunks.
a lot of
That's
dunks. I mean, I want to say he's probably the most athletic freshman, we've seen in 10, 15 years. Zion, I'm talking about.
Mhm.
I mean, he gets the ball, and I mean, he would just breeze by people with his athleticism. I mean, a
Yeah.
lot of dunks, a lot of 2 to 3 foot baskets. But
Yep.
watching Cooper Flagg this year is something special.
Yep.
It's
I'm trying to go see in February,
I
baby.
didn't buy into the Cooper Flagg stock at the beginning of this year,
Me neither.
and now I'm like, holy smokes! Like you're watching a future great, potential Hall of Famer in the NBA.
Yep. 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 So you made a statement about a minute or two ago that you said Duke was number one. Who's number one right now? So Auburn moves up. They lose Janai Broom
Mhm.
to injury, ankles. I think an ankle sprain, ankle injury. Don't know how long he's going to be out. You got to think he's going to be out for
2-3 games, I'd say. You know,
Yeah, a week or
he's
two, just
missed the
depends, right?
Mississippi State game last night, so, that's been official, and, now, you know, I think it'll be day to day, but, he's shown an ankle sprain, so I think he'll be out 2 or 3 games.
Yep, yep, and depending, he might have a game where he's kinda not at his best, just trying
Right.
to get used to everything
Yeah.
mental. So 3 to 4 games, could be longer, could be less. Now, they've got a great team. Cam Baker, Mazzara, as a ball player. Pettiford, the freshman, is just amazing. Big fan of Denver Jones, Miles Kelly. They got to bring it up. The thing stat that kind of sticks out for me with Brome is 10.7 rebounds per game, 2.7 blocks per game. You're not only losing the scoring and and all the other stuff he does in the intangibles. You're also a guy down low that's going to get after on the defensive and offensive rebounding end.
Yeah, he's a
So
key piece. I mean, I think you can make up the scoring in that Auburn team, but yeah, those, you know, 10 to 12 rebounds he's grabbing every game and 3 blocks, that's tough to make up,
yeah,
and, you know, I mean, those 3 blocks are, I mean, that's 6 points a game, you know,
yeah,
difference, and in the
yeah,
SEC, I mean, that's what it's gonna come down to. It's gonna come
yeah.
down to, you know, 3 to 6 points in some of these close games.
I was hoping that Iowa State would be number one. It could change very quickly. They play obviously tonight at home against Kansas, and then Saturday the game I'm hoping to go to, weather barring and what have you, is they're playing at West Virginia. Who, I mean, Rocky Mountain, take me home, West Virginia. John Denver, baby. But
Yeah, West Virginia's playing good too, so
yeah, and their only loss was to Auburn by 2 in Maui with, the whole team intact and stuff like that. I love what Coach T's doing, TJ's doing the last he's in year 4. I mean, they're 14-1. Curtis Jones, Keyshawn Gilbert, I'm a big fan. Joshua Jefferson, 12-8, points and rebounds. The one thing, I feel like this is the most underappreciated and not talked about home environment arenas is the Hilton Coliseum and the Magic. It was built in 1971, just seats over 14,000 fans. They're 623 and 207 losses. I mean, isn't that crazy when you think about that?
yeah, in the Big 8 and the Big 12.
I
Like,
know.
so it's, I mean, they're playing against really good teams coming in there year after year.
Yeah. Have you ever been to
Yeah,
a
no,
game there?
I would definitely say I was a little surprised Auburn kind of moved up ahead of Iowa State, or, you know, they took over the number 1, ranking this past week. I think Iowa State is a better team today. If I had to pick a team, if the NCAA tournament started tomorrow morning, I would pick Iowa State to win it.
Wow. Wow.
Will will I still be saying that after conference play? I don't know. I mean, they've got to
Will
stay
you say that
healthy.
after tonight? That's a team, Kansas. I've just not watched much Kansas, and I don't know why. I'm excited to
Mhm.
watch the game,
Yeah, it'll be a
tonight.
good game.
That'll be a really
Yep.
good game. So what about Duke? I mean, you said Duke. What about Alabama? Because Alabama, I mean, you don't hear much about Mark Sears. I mean, he's it seems like he's had a quiet season, but if you look at his stats, he's playing well. I mean, Grant Nelson, they got the big guy, the transfer in from Rutgers, I think it was Rutgers or St. John's. I can't remember, but Coach Oates is running a great program in Tuscaloosa. What about Alabama?
I like Alabama.
Yeah.
I like Alabama a lot. Part of the reason I like them is their experience that they bring from last year's Final Four,
Yes.
and that's so underrated this time of year, is to have a team that achieved what they did last year and be as hungry as they are, right? And um, Coach Oates is an elite coach. Mark Sears, Grant Nelson. I think that they will be extremely competitive in the SEC. They're kind of a dark horse for me to win the SEC.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, I think that they can beat any team in the country, home or away, because of that experience.
Yeah. Yeah. I would totally agree on that one. We talked a little bit about the Hilton Coliseum. The one arena I want to talk about in the environment is Utah State. I
The
mean,
herd, the
the hurt.
herd.
I mean, that's just next level. I
Yeah.
mean, it really is next level in Logan, Utah.
Mhm. Yeah, nobody wants to go to Logan, Utah for a number of reasons. One, it's really hard to get there. And the second thing is once you get there, it's a different atmosphere. Um, the herd shows up for every single home game. You've seen the success they've had over the past, 3, 4, 5 years, building a college basketball culture there with coaches leaving.
That's the
Like
crazy thing.
we thought this was going to be like a rebuilding year for Utah State, right?
And we know, and
Like
we've had Coach Calhoun on the show a couple times.
yeah, and we're huge fans of Coach Calhoun,
Yeah.
and we spoke to him on the summer when he was kind of running a frat house with the other coaches out in Loga, Utah, kind of putting this team together.
Mhm.
And man, they're fun team to watch. But
Yeah.
going into Logan, Utah, I mean, it's a incredibly underrated home environment to play against. I'd put it up there against any other, you know, home environment that you don't want to play in as an
Yep.
opposing coach or
Yep.
player or fan.
Yep. Yep. I would agree. I would agree. We got to get out there one of these days. All right. So Biggie or Tupac? This was your statement. I will tell you, Juicy is my favorite song from Biggie, and Tupac, my favorite song is All Eyes on Me. All eyes on me. Do 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 do
Jeez,
do do.
all eyes
All
on
eyes
me.
on
Yeah.
me.
I don't know. I mean, it's I think it's a I went two ways with this suggestion. One, I just think it's fun to debate Biggie or Tupac, right?
Yeah.
Um, I think, yeah, I love East Coast hip hop,
Yeah.
when I'm in my car. I think it's built for the boombox. I think it's built for
Yes.
the car.
Yes.
But there's something about West Coast hip hop when you're at a party and
Oh, I know.
somebody puts on Tupac or Snoop or Dre
California
or
love. Do, 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 do,
NWA
do,
or
do, do.
anything like that. Like when you're around other people, there's nothing better than West Coast hip hop.
Yeah, you chill to East Coast, you grind with West Coast.
Yes, 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 yes.
Just
But I
saying,
went
just
a
saying.
different way with this. I went a different way because when I looked at the
I
top
didn't.
20 when I looked at the top 25, most recent poll, I was like, "Man, there's such an East Coast bias in college basketball." And, in the top 20, so if you split the country in half,
Okay.
right? How many teams do you think are ranked in the top 25 on the west side of the United States?
Okay. What is half? What's the half of America? Where's my Mason Dixon line?
You're basically going through the middle of Kansas and the middle of Texas.
So Kansas is considered on the east side. Things.
Correct.
And then Texas. Ooh, that's I gotta think about Texas. I would say out of the 25, 21 are to the right, so the east, and 4 to the west. That's just my
Mm,
guess.
you're close, 22 and 3. So
Really?
the only three teams to crack the top 25 on the west coast of the United States, again, if you're just splitting it in half, number 13, Oregon, number 16, Gonzaga, and number 22, Utah State. And we all know if Utah State loses one game, they're gonna get out of they're gonna vote
Yep.
them out of the top 25.
Yep.
Everybody else is on the east coast of the US, which is wild to me. The last
The
team
right
to
side of the state. Yep.
Yeah,
The
the
right
right
side of
side.
the country.
Yeah, the
Yep. Right.
east side of the country. The last team to win, like, is just, I mean, it's I don't know what's going on with the East Coast bias. I mean, people aren't watching the games on the West Coast. I mean, there's more universities on the East Coast of the US. There's overall better basketball, but it's not I mean, it's only 12% of the teams are ranked in the top 25 on the West side. And
Yeah.
I just think that there's something wrong with that, and I think this conversation is gonna be a lot more apparent when you see, we hit on Mick Cronin's like statements. It's like there's a huge referee bias on the East Coast, and now you're sending teams in conference, across the country to play, and you want a fair and balanced game, and I don't I agree with him when you watch some of these games.
Yeah.
It's very apparent, and
I, yeah.
yeah, so I mean, and there's a lot of good basketball playing on the West Coast.
I know. I know. It's just late. I mean, you know me. I stay up late. You're like, why are you tired? I'm like, yeah, watch the Mountain West game when it's double overtime.
Yeah,
But it's interesting. You'd think Mick Cronin would have stayed at Cincinnati. I know they're I've seen a little bit on Twitter that the Bearcats fans are not happy with Wes Miller, especially his press conferences. But what are some of the games you're? What are some of the games you're looking forward to this week and weekend? Give me a couple.
Yeah, I mean, talking about the West Coast, I mean, Friday, I love the Boise State at New Mexico game.
Yeah,
I mean, I'm Mountain West, and Boise State's 12-5 with a really good team. They're going to play at New Mexico, who's a 14-3 team. I think it's going to be a really, really good college basketball game.
yeah,
If you're
and
a college
New Mexico
basketball
could
fan,
easily be in the top 25. You know that 22,
absolutely.
23, 24,
That's what I'm
25. I
saying.
love Donovan Dent,
That's my
Nelly
point.
Joseph.
And
Yeah,
so, I mean, I encourage people to watch that game, Boise State at New Mexico on Friday. I already mentioned I like that Indiana at Ohio State game because I kind of want to see how good Indiana is. And they've
yeah.
got some star players, and I want to see how good they are. Saturday, just watch the SEC.
Yeah.
Honestly, just
Well, you
watch
got.
the SEC.
I
Tune
mean,
in. I mean, yeah, number 4 Alabama at number 8 Kentucky, number 1 Auburn at number 23 Georgia. Georgia only has 2 losses this year,
no.
and number 21 Ole Miss at number 15 Mississippi State.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's the one
that's
I'm.
all Saturday.
Yeah, that's the one I'm looking for. The Battle of Mississippi.
Yeah.
I might have some white barbecue sauce and watch that. Well, actually, I'll be on my way to the Iowa State West Virginia game. A couple games I like is Thursday night, tomorrow night, Memphis at Temple. We were thinking about going to that game. Temple had a really nice win against Rice. Jamal Mashburn Jr. Shout out to Jamal Mashburn Sr., who's still not gotten back to me to be on the Full Court Legends show, which we need to do another one sooner than later. And then the one game I'm really kind of looking forward to watching, I won't be able to, I might listen to it because I'll be driving to Morgantown. If the roads are bad, I'm going to instead go to the Miami of Ohio at Kent State game. Miami of Ohio is in the top 25 mid-major poll. Coach Steele, I thought he was crazy for doing it the high school route, and the guy is doing very well.
Yeah.
In Oxford.
Mm-hmm. That'll be a good game.
Very well. And Kent State, Coach Senderhoff's been there for years, has a really good program. Von Cameron Davis, that should be exciting. So, just check out just basketball in general. I mean, I just love this time.
Yeah.
I watch a lot of highlight packages. I watch a lot of games. It brings me back watching all these highlight packages that they put on, for games that have finished. Reminds me of my days in television, sitting there cutting, looking at stuff like that. And, you get an idea. You don't get a total sense, but at least you get a strong idea of players and teams and stuff like that. So another good one, man, of the College Basketball Weekly, brought to you by the Full Court Network.
Appreciate you, LT.
Yep. So don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review. Give us 5-star reviews where you can on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Subscribe to the Full Court Network YouTube page. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram. And if you want more from us, check out our Substack page. The link is below. We got some free content. We're going to wait till probably maybe April, May before we start having some paid extra content and stuff like that. We hear a lot of stuff. We probably need to post some of it in a kind of more of a private platform and stuff like that. So thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. And check out the Full Court Press College Basketball Coaches Show. And we'll be back next week on the College Basketball Weekly.